U.S. forces in Fallujah say they are now in control of 70% of the city after another day of fierce fighting.
What's gonna happen? M16s, 240. We're gonna pop up. Gonna do 5 seconds of suppression. Go, hose up.
He's a smart enemy. He's shown some discipline. For the most part, over the past year and a half, we've killed all the dumb ones.
We're taking fire from the mosque just directly south of us.
The Americans don't want too much bad news about their military casualties to get out. They want the good news. The Fallujah was a great victory.
Get on the roof.
It's strange to think that these are family homes now abandoned to war.
The attack on Fallujah has made things worse. It's actually, if anything, further mobilized the insurgency.
What was that? Find hard cover, everyone.
Right, Michael! Attach the car!
Stay round! Go!
These areas where the train tracks are and stuff like that, it's very good.
Briefing the night patrol. This unit won't enter Fallujah yet, but in the coming days, the plan is to overwhelm the insurgents in the city with a major assault. The Americans believe that controlling Fallujah is the key to controlling Iraq.
This is just the beginning of a large counterinsurgency operation that's going to provide the people freedom from fear and establish the legitimate government of Iraq.
After midnight, the armoured Humvees set off. Patrolling the outskirts of Fallujah, the Marines know they may meet small arms fire, roadside explosives and suicide car bombs. This weekend, 9 Marines were killed. Everyone has to wear ballistic goggles. Shrapnel from a roadside bomb can take out your eye. The unit stops to sweep for explosive devices on the verge. It's not long before they find something.
Hey, we might got one over here. Back up. Hey, back up.
What they found is a white plastic bag with wires coming out of it. It could be an improvised explosive device, so they've sent for the Ordnance Disposal Unit to come along. The Marines say that since they've been advertising, telling the people that the attack on Fallujah is imminent, they've seen an increase in the number of improvised explosive devices. And this spot is particularly bad. As they're sending the details to the bomb disposal team, news from the Humvees ahead. They've raided a house, finding 2 pistols, a Kalashnikov, a satellite positioning system, and a man who claims he works for the CIA. They're suspicious and have arrested him. The Ordnance Disposal Unit turns up. They confirm the white plastic bag is a bomb and blow it up. the prisoners taken to be interrogated for information about insurgents and their movements. By now, their most notorious leaders, like Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, must have melted away to fight another day in another place. But Fallujah still has huge political significance.
Taking Fallujah is not the answer to the counterinsurgency war, but making the people of Iraq feel secure that there is law and order and that the legitimate government will not tolerate terrorism or criminal activity or people that foster murder, intimidation, and coercion and things of that sort. That's what this whole operation is about.
Working on the Amtraks, each vehicle needs 7 hours of servicing for every 1 hour on the road. The Marines have been told to be ready for a major operation soon. There's no element of surprise, but that's part of the plan too. They want civilians to flee Fallujah, so there's less chance of killing them. The armoured vehicles roll out for one of their last patrols before the onslaught. There's no doubt that US forces can retake Fallujah. The question is whether the Americans and their Iraqi government allies are right, that the fall of Fallujah will fatally wound the insurgency. Lindsay Hilson, Channel 4 News, with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force near Fallujah. It's a nightly barrage. The Americans trying to weaken the insurgents before the assault on Fallujah. They say each target is carefully selected, but last night they hit a medical warehouse next to a small hospital. Briefing for the coming attack. Each platoon is studying the map, learning their battle sector and role. Marines I've met say their greatest fear now is blue on blue, Americans killing each other, because so many different units of both Army and Marines are going to be fighting in one small town. There's no doubt the Americans can retake Fallujah, but will that solve their problem? Last month they retook the neighbouring town of Samarra, but just today a series of coordinated car bombs there killed at least 37 people. The danger is the Americans are going to repeat the mistakes the Russians made in Grozny 9 years ago. They virtually destroyed the Chechen capital, but they're still fighting Chechen rebels today. Lindsay Hilson, Channel 4 News, with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force near Fallujah.
These latest casualties came as the Black Watch battle group was beginning its biggest operation yet. Hundreds of soldiers were being deployed to the far bank of the Euphrates River when the suicide bomber struck.
2 soldiers were on a tasking when a suicide bomber drove his vehicle at them and initiated his device. As a result of the attack, both soldiers have suffered serious damage to their lower limbs. The soldiers are currently in an American field hospital and will be evacuated to a military hospital in Germany within the next 24 hours.
Anxious soldiers in their Warrior armoured vehicle listened to the first reports of the attack. The explosion could be heard for miles around. The bomb disposal experts had been at the back of their Warrior when the suicide bomber drove his vehicle into them. The Black Watch this morning had been led across the Euphrates by a lone piper playing a Scottish lament, in memory of the 3 soldiers and their translator killed last Thursday when a suicide bomber struck their vehicle checkpoint. It gave the operation an added edge, though the main purpose was to establish a forward operating base on the eastern side of the river. They secured the main bridge across this stretch of the Euphrates before blocking roads and carrying out vehicle checks, described as random and unpredictable. One officer said, "We can't afford to stand still for long." Prophetic words indeed. Today's casualties will come as a further blow to the battle group, but commanders here at Camp Dogwood say that after today's mission they do now dominate their zone of operation. And with the battle for Fallujah about to begin, they say they've identified and are monitoring all the main insurgent routes in and out of this area. Ian Williams, Channel 4 News, Camp Dogwood. This is the area the Black Watch battle group is trying to seal off. from the lush banks of the Euphrates to the vast desert beyond, filmed from a helicopter flying into Camp Dogwood this morning. They've stepped up reconnaissance flights and patrols and say they're now fully prepared to block the rat run, the expected flow of insurgents out of Fallujah, some 25 miles to the north. One senior commander at British headquarters in Basra said they had been surprised by Thursday's suicide attack, and another on Sunday that gravely injured 2 bomb disposal experts. In an extraordinary admission, given the American experience in the Sunni Triangle, he said they had not been prepared for them and were now having to change tactics. The same military commander described the suicide bombings as something horrible, cold-blooded, something it's difficult to get your head around. He also said that based on eyewitness reports, the bomber was a Caucasian, a white male, not an Arab. The admission of surprise by the senior Basra commander also seems at odds with the views of the commander of the Black Watch. Lieutenant Colonel James Cowan was the alleged author of emails warning that once the Black Watch arrived, every lunatic terrorist would descend on the area like bees to a honeypot. Camp Dogwood and the new forward operating base on the far side of the Euphrates came under mortar attack again today. There were no casualties. Ian Williams, Channel 4 News, Camp Dogwood.
Through the night, the Marines used artillery on Fallujah as we drove nearer the town. We've just reached our staging point for the night. We skirted round the east of Fallujah, and now we're somewhere in the desert. A group of tanks and armoured vehicles will wait here through much of tomorrow. On the horizon, I can see smoke. That's where they're bombing Fallujah even now, just as the operation's beginning. At dawn, more bombing, hitting the eastern side of the city. We learned that other troops had already taken the hospital west of the river Euphrates. The company we're with is headed for a different sector. Behind me, the men of this unit have just been briefed on what happened last night when the first wave went in on the west of the river Euphrates. I can hear the bombing in Fallujah still in the background, and these men here know that they'll be going into action there soon. After a few hours, we moved, a company of Marines rolling through the desert. At the roadside, we saw women and children. They're being forced to flee. The next few days will be immensely dangerous for civilians in Fallujah, so the Americans are trying to get many of them out. Helicopter gunships fly low. All through the day they've been targeting what they say are rebel positions in the town and barriers in the way of the Marines and the army. Between the Marines and Fallujah, an obstacle, the railway line which forms the northwest boundary of the town. They blew it once, and then again, ready for the tanks and armoured vehicles to roll through the breach. Explosions after dark. Some may have been laid by the rebels, but as the company we're with moved into the northwestern district of Jolan, the bombing continued, supposedly targeting rebel strongholds. By torchlight, Marines searched deserted houses. It was feared that they might be rigged with tripwires and explosives, but in the event they were safe. By dawn, the sound of explosions and firing grew louder. We were parked in a cemetery. Helicopter gunships flew overhead. Hoping for a lucky shot, the insurgents fired wildly with their AK-47s. But that just alerts the Americans to their location, so they can target them with a missile or mortars. We walked out to one of the buildings where the Marines are now stationed.
How do you get to that building from here?
The Marines moved into these buildings in the northwestern tip of the town just after dawn. The insurgents are in these houses in the streets beyond us over there. They are firing back. The plan is to gradually move forwards with the helicopter gunships overhead and the weapons they're using here to clear the town hour by hour, and if necessary, day by day. Jolan was believed to be one of the parts of Fallujah controlled by the insurgents, but they may now have been pushed towards the centre. Marines here said the sector that they're in is now secure.
For us right now, none. We had a really good prep fire package with artillery and air strikes. So when we got in, I think all the insurgents had retreated probably further into the city. And right now, other units to our flank are engaged in right now.
More helicopters and more AK-47 fire. The Americans will be able to retake Fallujah in the next day or two. The question is, what will be left of the town? And will this really root out the insurgents and lay the pathway to elections, or simply kill and anger more Iraqis? Lindsay Hilsom, Channel 4 News, with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force in Fallujah.
The world is watching a one-sided fight and a one-sided view of it. No pictures today from the insurgent side of the Battle of Fallujah. So we just don't know what's happening to the tens of thousands of civilians still here, according to the government. The Reuters news agency spoke to a doctor who'd escaped from Fallujah hospital as it was overrun yesterday. He says there are scores of civilians dead and injured, but no way of reaching them by ambulance, few ways of treating them. But of course, nothing can be verified.
He's a smart enemy. He's shown some discipline. That's for sure. I think for the most part over the past year and a half, we've killed all the dumb ones. And they got the smart ones left. And he's fighting, and he's committed, and that's honorable because he's got a cause that he believes in, and that's why he's so determined. But he won't win.
Win or lose here, taking Fallujah will not end the war. Consider this, whilst 3 Marines were killed at Fallujah today, no fewer than 9 US soldiers and Marines were killed elsewhere by the insurgency. Back in Fallujah, it was reported the fighting had died down somewhat by late afternoon, though these Marine patrols were still firing on what they said were insurgents armed with Kalashnikovs. And pictures also showed heavy armour had now moved into more built-up areas of the city. The US commander summed up the resistance so far like this. The Americans have no precise idea but feel there are about 2,000 or 3,000 fighters resisting in Fallujah. But the picture of combat in the war across Iraq today proves again that Fallujah is not, never was, and never will be the only place where insurgents can plan, regroup, and fight again.
Well, it is worth it, I think. Fallujah has been a thorn, actually, in the back of this government, and a major challenge for all of us. I mean, it has been a safe haven for all these terrorists who are beheading people, who are destroying churches, who are sending car bombs, let's say, to different parts of Baghdad, of Iraq, and therefore it should not have stayed as ungoverned area of Iraq. Especially we are facing elections, and we want to have general election throughout the country. So no part of Iraq should be really off bounds for the government control.
This is coming at some considerable political price, as well as physical one for the Americans. Political in that there are Sunni people within your own government now who are saying, no, this is not right.
I think the government is united behind this decision, actually. I mean, all members of the governments are for the restatement of the government control over Fallujah, other parts. In fact, we have exhausted all avenues for a political settlement, for some kind of negotiation.
But then there are senior figures like Adnan Pachachi, who recently was in the government, who are really very upset about this.
In fact, I heard Adnan Pachachi yesterday. He was very understanding of the decisions government. I haven't heard anything today from him, but Adnan Pachachi has not been in the government as such. He was a member of the governing council and he's a respected leader, but definitely the government is united, both the president, the prime minister and the cabinet, and we are all behind this decision.
But how far do you really feel that you are in charge of events? This is surely in reality an American operation dictated in timing terms by the Americans. You have very little role in it, do you?
No, I think this is our country, and Fallujah is an Iraqi city, it's not an American city, so we have the best interest really to assert government control there. And this is a partnership between Iraqi forces, Iraqi troops, and the multinational forces. Yes, they have more weapons, they have more technology, they have more firepower, but definitely without the Iraqi component, this operation would not have been completed.
And do you really have confidence that the whole of the country can be brought under control in what is now really only 2 months before elections?
I believe the outcome of this military operation in Fallujah will have a major impact on the overall political security situation in the country. And it will send out a clear and loud message to all other parts, to all those insurgents, extremists, and terrorists who try to defy the authority of the government, to think again that this is not possible. This government means business, and it is committed to hold elections, to take the country, to prepare the country for general election throughout the country, and should be a nationwide election, not confined to only some parts which are safe and secure.
Dusk brings a heightened state of alert on the perimeter of Camp Dogwood, where soldiers scour the bleak desert horizon. The Black Watch battle group has been stung by the methodical and suicidal violence of their enemy. No civilian traffic is allowed to approach the camp.
By the rules of engagement, also, if I fire a warning shot, okay, that lets the civil vehicles know that they're not meant to come within 100 metres of the camp. They continue on, and then obviously they're a threat, so we'll open fire.
Inside Dogwood, the flag has again been at half-mast. In just 5 days, 4 soldiers and an interpreter have died. Another 12 have been injured. Nobody doubts the courage and professionalism of these soldiers, but 2 suicide car bomb attacks and yesterday evening's roadside bomb near the camp have generated some unease and tension.
Didn't expect it to be that. I thought it'd just be like fighting trips and maybe a couple of bombs here and there, but not bombs banging every night and mortars every night.
Obviously there's a little bit of fear there. It's unknown, isn't it? So just have to crack on. We're all professional here, we all know how to do our jobs.
Yesterday's attack, a remote-controlled bomb, had been against a Warrior armoured fighting vehicle like these, killing 1 soldier and injuring another 2. The man who died was a Fijian, one of more than 1,000 in the British Army. He'd been driving the Warrior.
Private Tukawaka was 27 and joined the Black Watch in March 2001. He was a trained sniper and an outstanding sportsman. He will be dearly missed by his regiment and his friends. The Black Watch Battle Group is developing its tactics to counter this sort of attack and has been supported by specialist equipment in order to do so.
Those changed tactics are also likely to include more random and unpredictable checkpoints to try and thwart the suicide bombers. One commander says, "We can't afford to stand still." As another unit headed into the desert this evening, one army source rejected suggestions the battle group had been unprepared for the suicide attacks. But he did concede that intelligence about the area has not been good. It was a black hole, he says, and the enemy is a thinking enemy. The insurgents are in effect using suicide car bombs as a battlefield weapon against the army. That's what's forcing a change in tactics. Though commanders here say they will still leave their vehicles and patrol on foot in soft hats where possible. That won't be an easy judgment to make. Ian Williams, Channel 4 News, Camp Dogwood.
Good evening. 85 insurgents are dead, 11 Americans and 2 Iraqi soldiers. The civilian toll still unrecorded. Despite continued fighting tonight, US forces believe they have effectively taken the city, but the insurgents claim to have captured 20 Iraqi soldiers and have displayed them on videotape. Tonight, the latest as the British Camp Dogwood is hit by 6 mortars. A helicopter pilot is seriously wounded and medevaced to Baghdad. US forces in Fallujah say they are now in control of 70% of the city after another day of fierce fighting. But in a video released just before we went on air, Iraqi insurgents paraded what they claim to be 20 Iraqi National Guards fighting alongside the Americans they say they captured in Fallujah. The latest casualty figures are that 11 American troops, 2 Iraqi soldiers have now been killed in the offensive. The US-led forces say they have made rapid progress in the city and that they have hoisted the Iraqi flag over the police headquarters in the city centre. Our political correspondent Gary Gibbon reports.
This morning in the centre of Fallujah, and the US forces come under fire from a sniper in a minaret.
We're taking fire from the mosque just directly south of us.
Fallujah is known as the city of mosques. The sight of a mosque under attack from US tanks will make for inflammatory viewing on Arab TV channels. These images from yesterday give an extraordinary close-up view of street-by-street fighting. The US spends enormous effort and money trying to avoid fighting this kind of warfare, but in Fallujah it's been dragged in. These exchanges in the Jolan district lasted 7 hours. Tanks were brought in once the Marines identified an insurgent firing position in a battered building.
I want to keep pushing up.
The US military insists that the Iraqi army's been involved at every stage of the fighting in Fallujah, often taking the lead. There were no signs of Iraqis in these images. The US military said insurgents were not defeated, but they were significantly depleted.
You ask if we have broken the back. We are comfortable that they are not able to communicate, to work out any coordination. They are now in small pockets, blind, moving throughout the city, and we will continue to hunt them down and destroy them.
By last night, 48 hours into the offensive, US sources said they controlled most of Fallujah and had reached the main highway that runs through the middle of the city. Tonight, taking advantage of night vision equipment, they're expected to remove remaining snipers there and move south. The US military is refusing to say exactly where they're heading. Insurgents have claimed that they're able to evade the US military cordon around Fallujah and slip out undetected. The US military says it believes none have escaped.
Yeah, we haven't seen anyone run out of the city yet. We've been maintaining continuous observation from our vantage point, and so far no one's fled the city in our direction, which means that our mission is we're succeeding.
And these are rare images from the other side of the conflict. These insurgents were filmed in Karma, just north of Fallujah. They show the ramshackle nature of the forces taking on the mightiest army in the world. They also show insurgents operating beyond Fallujah. And today those insurgents struck yet again all over Iraq, in Mosul, where there were gunfights with police. One Turkish worker was killed in shootings in Baiji. In Samarra, where the US had boasted they'd subdued opposition, rebels stormed the town hall and killed a policeman. And in Baghdad, 7 people were killed in a suicide bomb attack near a police patrol. And a previously unknown group claims to have kidnapped the first cousin of the interim Prime Minister Aid Alawi and 2 of the man's female relations. The kidnappers said they would all be killed unless the Fallujah offensive was called off. At a press conference, the Iraqi military showed their forces raising the Iraqi flag over Fallujah police station. They said Iraqi soldiers had also uncovered the slaughterhouses where Musa al-Zarqawi's group is believed to have held some of its hostages.
There was the clothing, the black clothing that you've seen in some of the TV that they were broadcasting when they captured some hostages.
Joining us now is the former leading member of the Iraqi Governing Council, Adnan Pachachi, former Foreign Minister of Iraq. Adnan Pachachi, you're a secular politician, but you're a Sunni. Do you support the attack on Fallujah?
Well, of course, I was very unhappy about the loss of life, about the destruction, and my position has always been that force should be used only as a last resort. That dialogue is the best way to deal with these problems. And even when force is used, it should be used sparingly and with moderation, because the excessive use of force is counterproductive. It can lead to a great deal of bitterness and anger, and which will, of course, affect the future.
Would you characterize what's going on tonight as excessive use of force?
Well, I mean, obviously the fight is totally unequal. On the one hand, you have a great array of heavy weapons and airplanes and tanks and so on. On the other side, of course, they have weapons, but of a very insignificant nature, really, compared to the American weapons.
Can I ask you then what you think the consequences of this are for the Sunni population in particular? Do you fear that this could trigger a Sunni boycott of the elections, for example?
Well, I hope not. I hope not, because if they boycott the election, the Sunnis will be the main losers, because the election is for a national assembly that will write a new permanent constitution. And I think it's unthinkable that a large segment, an important segment of the Iraqi population would be left out of the political process.
Now, although
I understand the anger and bitterness and the frustration that is felt, and but I don't think actually Fallujah will end the acts of violence, because as we have seen, as you have indicated yourself a little while ago, that there were incidents all over the country, in Mosul, in Baghdad, and in Baquba, I think, and other places. And as you said, also the leaders of the insurgency in Fallujah may have slipped away, because the siege on Fallujah was not completed until maybe 2 or 3 days ago. So this is not the end of the story, I'm afraid. And the government will still have to use the way of dialogue, of negotiations to deal with this problem.
There, I'm afraid we must leave it, but thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
At Camp Dogwood, 2 more soldiers from the Black Watch have been injured. The Ministry of Defence confirmed today, one of them seriously. A helicopter pilot was badly wounded when his aircraft came under small arms fire. He had to be medevaced to safety. Another soldier was hurt as 6 mortars were fired into the camp itself. Our correspondent Ian Williams is with Black Watch in Camp Dogwood and sent this report under the usual military restrictions.
As a rocket thudded to the ground outside, we scrambled into the sandbagged shelter that's been the home for journalists here. A wailing ambulance sounding the alarm across Camp Dogwood. A soldier counted heads, a procedure repeated across the camp, and now becoming an all too familiar ritual when the shells rain in.
So for the second time today, Camp Dogwood has come under attack. The camp's locked down and we're all taking shelter until given the all clear. Ironically, this attack happened in the middle of a rehearsal, a drill, the soldiers taking positions, deciding what to do in the event of an attack on the camp.
Outside, the drill suddenly became more real. They'd been digging in, taking up the positions they'd use in the event of a ground attack on the camp. That didn't happen, but with 6 mortars, or rockets, landing in the vicinity of the camp today, one lightly injuring a soldier, they were leaving nothing to chance. Earlier, a Black Hawk helicopter had swept into the camp for the emergency evacuation of a seriously injured British pilot. His helicopter had been hit by small arms fire from the ground, his co-pilot bringing him safely back to Dogwood. This has been the most intense day of attacks against the Black Watch battle group since Operation Bracken began. A company of Warrior armoured fighting vehicles had also come under mortar attack. There were no injuries, and commanders say they returned mortar fire after detecting the insurgents using high-tech sensors. One soldier today had placed a poppy in his helmet. Still time for remembrance on such a threatening day for the Black Watch battle group. Ian Williams, Channel 4 News, Camp Dogwood.
Later in the programme, we hear from the families of British soldiers killed in Iraq who were eventually allowed into Downing Street to lay a wreath at number 10. But let's go live now to Fallujah, where we've got our international editor, Lindsay Hilsum, on the line. Lindsay, what's actually going on as we speak?
John, it's quiet where we are today. The unit I'm with has advanced quite a long way into Fallujah, very near the centre of the city now in Jolan, this northwest district which was controlled by the insurgents before. I've just heard one gunshot, but other than that, it's been quiet for the last few hours. That certainly wasn't the case earlier. As they were advancing earlier today, there were what they call pockets of resistance, but there was quite a loud firefight at one point with AK-47s from the insurgents on one side and then the Americans with their M16s and their heavy weapons on the other. So they certainly have met some resistance today.
And Jolan is, kind of abuts another area, presumably, where they still are holding out. We understand that 70% of the city is in American hands. That still leaves a significant resistance somewhere.
Well, I don't know whether you call it significant or whether you'd call it pockets of resistance here and there. But one of the captains I was with today said that he thought what had happened was that as the Americans came in, the insurgents would move away, but some of them had slipped back overnight and come back up again. One of the things that they found today was 6 weapons caches. They also captured about 12 insurgents and they say have killed about 12 insurgents. And we say did see one dead body today. It was of a man of fighting age. I can't say whether he was actually an insurgent or not. So there certainly there is still resistance around. But it's not stopping the Americans in their advance.
Lindsay Hilsum in Fallujah.
Gate to gate, door to door, breaking and entering, aware that any house may be booby-trapped or occupied by gunmen. The unit we're with has spent the past 4 days pushing south through the Jolan district of Fallujah. This is violent work. If they can't open the gate any other way, they lay a charge and blow it. Everything's seen as a potential threat. Cars are detonated, just in case they're car bombs. No! This one burnt for half an hour or so, and they are having to fight, as insurgents leave an area and then creep back.
Today was the most resistance we had. Got a cross between some civilians and some bad guys.
What happened?
We shot a lot of bad guys and collected the civilians up really good, and I brought the civilians back, and the bad guys, there's a couple dead and there's a couple back there right now getting worked by our exploitation teams.
The units captured about 12 prisoners who've been taken away for interrogation. Amongst the civilians they found was a child who'd been locked in a room. They also came across the bodies of 5 men who appeared to have been executed with a gunshot to the throat. We saw just one body lying where he'd fallen. The unit leader says they've killed several insurgents.
Yeah, we found a lot of weapons today. Today was the largest stockpiles of weapons. We found about six sites, some explosives, a couple houses rigged to blow, cell phones, a lot of cell phones. So we're finding the usual mix, but not large quantities today.
Some weapons, like these rockets and rifles, are gathered up and taken away to be destroyed. Others left where they're found, to be dealt with on the spot.
But yeah, you can tell because this is their sleeping mat. They've had some, they were making some IEDs also. She found some squids here and some several civilian dead cord and time fuses.
PRC is right there.
Right there. And basically, this was their area right here. They had a little area outside which they had set up as a fighting hole. They left in a hurry.
Amongst the weapons, those given by the Americans to the Fallujah Brigade, the Iraqi militia who were meant to control the town, but then turned on their US sponsors. A few blocks of plastic explosives ensured that this cache met the same fate as the others.
Check.
The armoured vehicles wreak their destruction too. The Marine attitude is that such force is necessary, and whatever's demolished now, they can always rebuild later. Insurgents may have pushed the people out of these houses some time back. Still, it's strange to think that these are family homes where ordinary people lived, now abandoned to war. Photos staring at no one. Once caged birds, bewildered to be free. The soldiers are still going from house to house, but now they're staying in the houses and holding them. The firefight is still going on. There's resistance in the surrounding areas. Later on they hope to start patrolling, to flush out the last of the insurgents, some of whom they say slipped away overnight and then came back during the day. American forces are consolidating their hold on Fallujah, hoping they've fatally wounded the insurgency in Iraq, not simply driven the rebels out of this town to set up in another. Lindsay Hilsum, Channel 4 News, with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force in Fallujah.
Remembrance Day at Camp Dogwood. Since its formation nearly 300 years ago, the Black Watch has fought in just about every major British military campaign. By the standards of some of those battles, the losses in Iraq have been small. But the enemy now is unseen, his weapon of choice the suicide bomber. And today it was the loss of 5 of their colleagues in the last week that was foremost in their minds.
This year it is particularly poignant for us because not only do we bring the past to present as we remember, but the present has its own place in our prayers and in our thoughts. We think of those who have recently died and their families.
At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
It was a solemn ceremony, speedily conducted. With Dogwood under almost daily rocket attack, it wasn't thought wise for them to gather any longer than necessary. Their commanding officer paying his own tribute to his lost soldiers.
What I would say is that we owe it to them now to complete our operation successfully. When we leave here, they would want to think they've given their lives in a worthwhile cause, and we will therefore continue to press on with our task and to ensure it's brought to a successful conclusion.
How is the mission going?
The mission is very much focused on providing a ring of steel around Fallujah to prevent the enemy from being able to escape. We have all the major roads blocked and my soldiers are, as we speak, engaged in preventing that movement, and all the analysis that I've seen shows that that is being extremely successful in denying the enemy an exit from Fallujah.
That the most detailed account yet from Lieutenant Colonel Cowan about the aims and progress of this mission. Tactics now include random roadblocks designed to keep suicide bombers away from the troops. Iraqi motorists are warned to remain at least 300 meters from the British soldiers. Camp Dogwood was also trying to bolster its own defences today. A mortar line established within the camp, finding their range and registering potential targets, which should help them respond quicker to attacks on the camp. So, on the day the Black Watch remembered their fallen colleagues, officers here are insisting this mission is going well, that they can thwart the suicide bombers. As one senior officer put it, we can deal with it, we are dealing with it. Ian Williams, Channel 4 News, Camp Dogwood.
4 Marines injured this morning in a firefight in Fallujah. They're rushed to the aid station. Their Humvee tyres have been shot out, but they made it. 4 wounded colleagues are still pinned down under fire.
Ready on count 3. 1, 2, 3, look!
The ambulances are ready and the casualties loaded in as carefully and quickly as possible. Then it's straight to the dusty strip of desert which serves as a helipad. Purple smoke marks the spot where the chopper must land, to take the wounded to one of several military hospitals in the area. So far, they say, no one's died because of a failure of medical care. The medics are seeing the gamut of injuries.
Most of the injuries are fractured arms, fractured legs, shrapnel to the legs, or gunshot wounds to the legs. Occasionally we'll see injuries to the chest, bullet wounds through the chest. Some head injuries we've seen come through.
More casualties, and one man killed in action, which we can't show under military rules. Even if fighting eases in Fallujah, the insurgents will continue to attack the Americans and their allies wherever they can find them in Iraq. More lives saved by speed as the American military consolidates its hold on Fallujah and the politicians begin to think of the impact this will have across the country. The Americans are sensitive about their military casualties. They don't want too much bad news to get out. They want the good news. The Fallujah was a great victory, and it will be in military terms. But that doesn't mean that they're about to quell the insurgency in Iraq. Lindsay Hilsum, Channel 4 News, with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force near Fallujah.
The tactic now is to be mobile and unpredictable. Heavily armed troops using helicopters to hunt for suspect vehicles. The idea being to set up lightning checkpoints without turning themselves into sitting ducks for suicide bombers. So they sweep low over desert roads that originate in the Fallujah area, landing at random and planting warning signs telling motorists to stop well away from the soldiers. This family had come from Fallujah, saying they're just fleeing the mayhem.
Fallujah, danger city, danger city, bad man.
The explanation satisfies the Black Watch soldiers.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, sir. I'm sorry. Okay.
In the distance, a car turns around at the sight of the troops, fueling suspicion. The helicopter gives chase, blocking the road. When the soldiers arrive, the driver says he's a trader from Kabul to the south, that he turned around because he was afraid of the soldiers. The Black Watch has all but abandoned the sort of conventional vehicle checks it used in the south. As the Americans have found, it's just too risky here. Warrior armoured fighting vehicles also being used to block roads and disrupt traffic. It's hard to judge just how effective all this is. They've yet to apprehend a single insurgent, though commanders insist it is a deterrent. While our cameraman was with them, the helicopter was diverted in support of an operation along the banks of the Euphrates. A flatbed truck had been spotted, a possible launch pad for mortars. Soldiers fan out near the lush riverbank, along which sit large houses owned by former regime loyalists. Not many hearts and minds to be won here. They raid one house where a startled extended family had gathered to celebrate the end of Ramadan. They're asked to come out and sit in the garden while the house is searched. Next come the men. Why is this happening? Asked one. There's a baby here. The men are frisked and questioned. A shotgun confiscated, but returned after its owner says he needs it because of thieves. The reason for choosing this house lies in the yard outside, piles of pipes that might be used as makeshift rocket launchers. But not here. The soldiers soon accept they've raided a scrap metal dealer. Across the river, the East Bank, is where a suicide bomb killed 3 soldiers and their interpreter 10 days ago. It's also where the Black Watch battle group has its new forward operating base, Springfield, among the bombed-out derelict buildings of a former arms factory, where one soldier reflected on the dilemma they now face.
You've got to look at every vehicle as if it could be a threat, but you've also got to think that these are civilians and you're here to protect them as well, so it's a very difficult situation.
The base is in the massive Al-Qaqa complex, where more than 350 tons of munitions and explosives were looted from the hill-like bunkers under the nose of the Americans after the end of the war. One commander says the insurgents have an almost unlimited access to munitions and the skill to use them.
We were engaged by an RPG to our rear, so no casualties or spot. My vehicle has just took a direct hit off an RPG, over. Roger, okay, reverse out of that.
That clash, which unfolded in the area during our visit, came after soldiers approached a vehicle checkpoint set up by the insurgents. There were no casualties, but they did seize a number of weapons after the insurgents fled from the checkpoint, one of several they've set up in recent days in defiance of the British. Springfield is at the sharp end of the Black Watch operation, as the men here are only too aware.
It's a personal victory cigar. Personal victory, I'm still here.
So you got a bigger one, have you, for when the tour finally finishes?
Yeah, it was about a foot long.
Nearby they found a small mosque, used, they say, by insurgents for executing those they accuse of collaboration. 2 bodies were also found. They say a total of 16 bodies have been found in the area. The Black Watch battle group is now stepping up the tempo of operations. That is, in part because the insurgents are now more active, trying to divert attention away from Fallujah and prove their prowess elsewhere in the country. Ian Williams, Channel 4 News, Camp Dogwood.
There are Marines in here!
The reporter from NBC was with a group of US Marines on Saturday as they approached a mosque in Fallujah. It had been stormed the previous day after Marines were fired on from the building. They meet a second group of Marines and discuss what they found.
Yeah, we had 2 in there. You shoot them? They have your weapons on?
The Marines go in to find a number of dead and injured Iraqis. They've left 5 wounded Iraqis in the building to be collected after the previous day's fighting. But for some reason, they're still here. Then the camera captures a moment of horrific violence as the Marine notices one of the men is breathing.
Yeah, he's breathing. He's spanking his f***ing head. Yeah, he was playing.
The wounded man is shot in the head at point-blank range. Another injured Iraqi is left unharmed. The reporter with the unit said the men did not appear to be armed or threatening in any way. Now a military investigation has been launched.
Let me make it perfectly clear. We follow the law of armed conflict, and we hold ourselves to a high standard of accountability. The facts of this case will be thoroughly pursued to make an informed decision and to protect the rights of all persons involved.
US forces insist that insurgents are using mosques as bases to attack them, and they must retaliate. But the street fighting in Fallujah with small groups of determined fighters is inevitably bitter. Another Marine speaking today said in the same position he would have done the same thing.
Go get up.
The last cigarette before heading out. Search and attack, they call it. The Marines move through the ruins of Fallujah, looking for any gunmen who've not fled or been killed, the most desperate and determined. Tanks rumble in. The Americans were in this neighborhood the day before, but maybe the insurgents crept back overnight. The Marines have been told to comb the mosque for weapons, and as they do, the firing starts. It turns into a firefight. The armoured vehicle arrives with more ammunition because the houses around the mosque are full of fighters. A group of Marines is pinned down on a flat rooftop. We're filming from an armoured vehicle on the street below. The heavier weapons fire a barrage at the insurgents. They call it suppressive fire. A Marine has been injured, and his colleagues need to administer first aid and get him out. A stretcher is brought. This is a serious casualty, and it may already be too late. But the rest of the group now needs to get out too, under intense fire. This is the most dangerous engagement India companies had in Fallujah. weren't allowed to film the casualties. This one was loaded into the Amtrak and taken away. The fire team crosses the street.
Get on the roof! Rally's coming up!
They're going to hit the insurgents with an anti-tank missile.
What's gonna happen? M16s, 240. We're gonna pop up. Gonna do 5 seconds of suppression. All right? Slow on M16s, like 2 bursts. That way, Cole Pelton is gonna show me where the fire's come from, and I can look at the building. All right? That's you and you. Ready, set, go, hose up.
The heavy fire keeps the insurgents' heads down. The tracer has shown the man with the missile the target.
We'll use that, okay? And then one aiming in that window. Right? That window right there. It's like a doorway. Go! Go!
The back blast of the missile engulfs everyone in dust. They call in an airstrike, and the troops must quickly leave the danger area.
Snipers are here with Captain Santos. All right, start with the guns. Guns are going first. Go, guns. Head and take point. Ready, bomb.
They rush down the stairs to find a new position. Fearing the insurgents may still be active, they run down the street.
Keep my gun up. Move, gun.
The debris of the day's battle lies in their path. A rocket launcher, a flattened Kalashnikov. From a safer rooftop, we filmed tanks moving along the street, ready to fire a round into each house where there might still be resistance.
There's probably a good 20 or 30 down in that last corner, and they're pinched right now. The whole division's got them surrounded, and this is where they were. They've been using this mosque over here to treat their wounded. So in that side of that mosque, it's all dirty, and this last strip of houses down to our front, about 300 meters, just full of them, gunshot wounds and stuff, trying to get them treated, and they don't want to give up. We tried talking to them with our interpreter, getting them to surrender, walk out on the street. They're telling us they'd rather die than come out and surrender. So they're going to die.
The Marines begin to relax. The clash is nearing its end.
They've made a tactical withdrawal to this rooftop here, waiting for air power to come in and bomb the remaining insurgents. They think that there's at least another half dozen still in there.
5 seconds.
Night is falling as the Marines go on foot to see whether the combined power of all their weaponry has destroyed their enemies.
We're gonna check out the body, sir.
In the wreckage of the houses along the street near the mosque, they find the bodies of 21 fighters. According to their documents, these 5 came from the neighboring town of Ramadi. Terrorists to the Americans, martyrs to those who support their cause. The end of the Muslim fast of Ramadan is marked by the sickle moon. Americans control Fallujah, the ruined city of mosques. Lindsay Hilsom, Channel 4 News, Fallujah. A family who somehow survived the Battle of Fallujah emerges from the rubble. They say the front of their apartment block was bombed, so they hid in the back. The Americans are still taking people out of town. They drop them north of Fallujah, where they can go to the village of Fallujah, now housing 4,000 extra families. Only a little aid has got through there. It's still hostile territory for the Americans, and most Fallujah families are dependent on friends and relatives. The refugees are given some water, a little food and money, and sent on their way. Father and daughter are alone now. His other 2 children were killed. The people aren't being allowed back into Fallujah. Only teams of Iraqi men, supervised by Marines, going to collect bodies. Rotting corpses spread disease, so the refugees can't return until the streets have been cleared. So far, they've collected only 50 bodies, but there are thought to be at least 1,000 more in the streets, the houses, and hidden under rubble.
Even as they're bringing bodies out of the houses and off the streets, I can still hear the sound of fighting a few blocks away. At this point, it's hard to tell who the bodies were. Were they civilians or were they insurgents? It's going to take several days, maybe even a week, to bury them all. And this is just the beginning of the clean-up operation in Fallujah.
The bodies are lying where they fell. Some have been there 10 days or so. According to Islamic custom, they should have been buried within hours of death. But they'll be given an Islamic burial now. The bodies will be identified as far as possible from clothes and documents found on them. This team of Marines is taking care to work with community and religious leaders, but trust is skin deep. On the face of it, they cooperate well, but off camera, the Iraqis told me they blame the Americans for Fallujah's problems. All the bodies, they say, are civilians killed by Americans. That's not true. Some bodies have been found with weapons, but it shows how difficult it is to build confidence.
We're building relationships where the things we can do, we do them, and we build up their trust. In return, they offer to help something like this. They provide organization and leadership. It's unfortunate circumstances, but this is the context of our meeting, and I think it's proceeding quite well.
The body collection is curtailed when a firefight breaks out, just a couple of blocks away. The Americans are rounding up all men of fighting age for interrogation. We've seen about 200 detainees in the last few days. Most will be released. Some may feel the Americans liberated them from the brutal extremists running Fallujah, but others will remain bitter towards their captors and occupiers. According to the Marines, mosques were used as sniping positions and weapons stores. That's why so many minarets have been blasted away. But it's agreed that Muslims must search the mosques, so the Iraqi forces are sent in. The search is perfunctory, to say the least. The problem, say the Marines, is that the Iraqi soldiers don't want to find anything in the mosque, so they just don't look very hard. They uncover no weapons here, just propaganda.
Loads of propaganda talking about how the suicide bombings on our convoys, how they're going to kill Americans, how they're going to kill the Iraqi police for collaborating with coalition forces, how they're going to kill the Iraqi National Guard. Just a lot of hate, murder. That's what it's all about. There's just drawers of it.
The devastation of Fallujah is immense. Houses reduced to rubble by aerial bombs. Streets where each building has been hit by a tank round. The Americans are going to offer compensation and help rebuild, but it will take years and millions. And livelihoods, family heirlooms and memories can't be so easily restored.
This is the road from Baghdad to the Jordanian border, now littered with the debris of war. The shops on either side have been trashed. The Americans say that they've liberated Fallujah for its people. But we've yet to see what the people of Fallujah think about that.
If we have purged this city from the elements that were running it into the ground and basically leading it down this road to hell and destruction that had taken the city hostage, if we have removed that from the city, then that's a gift that also has no tangible value, and it will allow the reconstruction to begin.
No question that people suffered under the insurgent groups which ran Fallujah before the Americans came in. But that doesn't mean they'll thank those who destroyed much of their city in order to save it. Lindsay Hilsum, Channel 4 News, Fallujah.
This morning, the men of D Company used a tactic they haven't employed since a suicide bomb seriously wounded 2 of their colleagues 10 days ago. Foot patrols. They will leave their warrior armoured vehicles outside the 2 villages they visit. The Black Watch don't announce their visits, but as the fighters who've been attacking them these last 2 weeks are mixed in with the population, the posture is defensive, especially when a car approaches.
The path. Scotty, there's a vehicle coming up.
From a distance, the occupants are signalled out of the car.
Just have a dig around in there.
It turns out to contain nothing more than cattle feed. The locals give a mixed reception to this kind of thing.
50-50 really. Some of them are quite receptive to us, but a lot of them aren't. They're quite, I wouldn't say unfriendly, but it's obviously they're not happy us being here.
Do you live here as well? He's in the same area.
The value of these patrols is in gathering low-level intelligence and maybe winning a few hearts and minds. If this man is anything to go by, the Black Watch in just 2 weeks have had some measure of success.
He said that we used to see the American forces, the other forces here, but their behaviors is different from your behaviors. You're good, you're better.
But the Black Watch don't always show such a friendly face. 2 nights ago, A Company made what's been described as an intelligence-led raid on a house on the west bank of the Euphrates, some 15 kilometres from Dogwood.
Tom. Yeah. Get the dog on these bags, will you? Yeah.
During the raid, 2 men were arrested and taken back to the camp. They were questioned and then transferred into American custody. Back with D Company, and the foot patrols are about to enter a second village. This time, people won't be so friendly. Major Rob Lindsay and his men approach the village. At the first house, they're told they can't come in because the men aren't at home.
They're over there.
Then, on the edge of the village, one of the soldiers hears something.
What was that? Find hard cover, everyone.
Right, main call sign, let's go back!
We had just turned up on the scene and dismounted when one 61mm mortar round landed about 300 metres away from our position, which is not terribly accurate fire. However, it was brought in quite quickly.
This evening at Camp Dogwood, news has emerged of 2 more serious attacks against the troops here. The driver of a Warrior armoured vehicle was injured when a roadside bomb exploded this morning. His condition is thought to be serious, although not life-threatening. And members of the Queen's Dragoon Guards had a lucky escape when an apparent suicide bomber blew up his car near their vehicle checkpoint in the desert to the west of here. Tonight, they are still searching for a second car seen in the area at the time. Carl Dinnan, Channel 4 News at Camp Dogwood. Even when it's quiet at Camp Dogwood, the men of the Black Watch are kept busy with routine training. As it happens, though, this morning wasn't quiet. The bang you're about to hear is a mortar bomb hitting the camp. As the team take cover behind a sand barrier, another lands with a brief whistle and a bang. It's time to find hard cover inside a building. These attacks, once a regular feature of life at Camp Dogwood, had tailed off for a few days, possibly because of the end of Ramadan. Now, though, they are back. Each time it happens, everyone must be accounted for. The Black Watch had a successful day yesterday. They arrested 2 men after finding an illegal checkpoint. Elsewhere they found 2 rockets. But the local insurgents seem undeterred. Indeed, before this morning's mortar attack, 2 rockets had been fired into the camp. One, which didn't explode, was later destroyed.
Stand by!
Although the Black Watch have had their successes in the past few days in this area, this has been the busiest morning of attacks since the end of the Muslim festival of Eid, and the insurgents seem to be sending a message to Camp Dogwood, the headquarters of the Black Watch here. We haven't gone away. Carl Dinnan, Channel 4 News at Camp Dogwood.
I think there was a very simplistic and ultimately incorrect view that if you occupied Fallujah, the country would be pacified. As the campaign in Fallujah winds down, that's shown to be absolutely untrue. That the attack on Fallujah has made things worse. It's raised the political temperature. It's stretched American military resources to breaking point, and it's actually, if anything, further mobilized the insurgency.
So what has been achieved by America's policy of overwhelming force that we've seen so amply demonstrated in Fallujah in the last fortnight? America's ultimate aim remains elections in the new year, January the 27th, the favoured date. But time is running out. A leaked US Marines intelligence report this week revealing that if US forces left Fallujah, the insurgents would come flooding back. And the general also admitted troops expecting to go home soon will have to stay longer to keep force numbers up to meet increasing violence.
Elections look very unlikely at the end of January. I think there will be bureaucratic excuses, registration hasn't taken place, the parties need more time, but ultimately I think it's a recognition, finally, very late in the day, a recognition that you can't hold elections, meaningful elections, in a country sliding into anarchy.
Anarchy and bitterness too, for though many civilians in Fallujah suffered under insurgent rule, one wonders how many who will return to see their city's devastation will think it's been a price worth paying for democracy.
Royal Marine Commandos attached to the Black Watch battle group prepare to mount an airborne vehicle check. The threat of suicide bomber and roadside bomb make this the safest way to travel here. The Marines can choose their ground, choose their timing, and drop in fast. Although this is effectively a surprise checkpoint, no chances are taken. The drivers are motioned to stop and leave their vehicles. Then drivers and cars are thoroughly searched. Then it's time to move on again.
Ready for pickup. Now over.
Given the time the Marines have spent on the ground, they haven't actually stopped that many vehicles. The aim, they say, is to disrupt the movement of insurgents. Back in the Camp Dogwood operations room, they know that insurgents are unlikely to engage the Black Watch battle group in a direct firefight. The threat for British troops in the more hostile parts of Iraq, where General Sir Mike Jackson is reported to have said they may spend more time in the future, that threat is from suicide attacks and improvised bombs. Another approach the Black Watch are using here is called cordon and talk. Today, 2 companies of warriors descended on a stretch of road and sealed it off.
With a wire out, 150 metres down the road.
The loudspeaker warns drivers of civilian vehicles not to approach the troops, otherwise they may be fired on. Today, the Black Watch are also having what they call a rummage, a rough search. This will be aided by a sniffer dog, Rex. They say the Army's experience in Northern Ireland has taught them that it pays to be nosy. At the same time, they'll talk to as many locals as they can.
The aim of the day is just to come into the village and basically get the feeling of the locals. See if they know anything, because obviously the people in this area, it's insurgents we're looking for. It's not the folk for here that we're looking for, because these aren't the bad people. The information we're getting from the houses is that there is insurgents in the area, but not in this village.
To be fair, that's what most Iraqis tell them, but the Black Watch and Rex press on. They probably won't be at Camp Dogwood long enough for this kind of low-level intelligence gathering to make a big difference this time.
Nobody ever admits to there being insurgents around. There's a lot of intimidation. People are very scared. So what we've got to do is try and get in touch with them in a public way whenever we can.
But there are now new questions about whether British troops may be back in such areas and how long for. In years to come, should British troops continue to be deployed to the more dangerous areas of Iraq, it will be the lessons learned by the men in these warriors which inform much of what they do, just as they in turn have learned the lessons of Northern Ireland. As is often the case, though, these lessons have been learned at a high price indeed. Carl Dinnan, Channel 4 News at Camp Dogwood.
Led by a lone piper, they marched out of the mist at Battlesbury Barracks to embrace the families they hadn't seen for 6 months. This was the first large contingent of the Black Watch Regiment returning from their controversial deployment to Iraq. Their month-long mission at Camp Dogwood to support US troops in their assault on Fallujah led to 5 fatalities. 4 soldiers were killed in bomb attacks, 1 died in a road accident.
We were involved in 3 suicide vehicle-borne explosions, over 20 very large roadside bombs, and 120 other serious incidents.
They're clearly delighted to be back, but they've returned home to uncertainty about the future of the regiment itself. There's speculation that the Black Watch could be merged with another unit to form a super regiment. If so, Iraq could have been the final mission for the Black Watch. But the immediate concern for most after their dangerous tour of duty is spending time with their families.
Basically, it's treated it like any other tour, but it's good to be back.
For a predominantly Scottish regiment, this coming Hogmanay will understandably be livelier. Adrian Britton, ITV News, Warminster.